Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Sunday, June 25th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the London Series game between the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals. It's going to be a 10 a.m. Eastern start time on ESPN. Marcus Stroman and Jack Flaherty are your starters. I think these international games are always a little bit difficult to handicap, especially with the higher totals, just like we saw in the Mexico City Series games between San Diego and San Francisco. But for me, I'm leaning towards the Cubs in the first 5 innings of this one because I do think the Cubs have the advantage in the starting pitching matchup. Jack Flaherty over his last 10 2/3 innings against the Giants and Nationals, 20 base hits and 12 earned runs. I know the home run ball hasn't really hurt Flaherty, but he does give up a lot of base runners. His whip is at 1.6 overall this season. So sure, his strikeout numbers are there, but I just don't trust him. And compared to Marcus Stroman, who's been really sharp and consistent for the Cubs this season, he's got a good ERA at Wrigley Field and on the road. He's keeping the ball on the ground. He's actually got pretty decent strikeout numbers as of late. I think he does a good enough job here to keep the Cubs competitive in the early innings. I like the Cubs in the first 5 innings on the money line. Next up, it's the New York Mets taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Carlos Carrasco and Zach Wheeler are your starters. To me, this is a pitching mismatch. Zach Wheeler is in good form now overall, 3.48 ERA. You look at his last 3 starts, 6 innings of shutout baseball, 6 innings of 1-run baseball against the Diamondbacks, and then 7 1/3 of no earned run baseball against the Tigers. All wins for the Phillies. I know the offense hasn't backed them up in all those starts, but Carlos Carrasco has got a 6.34 ERA this season, really struggling overall. I can't trust him in this game, coming off a start against the Cardinals where he gave up 5 earned runs and only 3 innings of work with 2 home runs to go with it. Give me the Phillies on the run line at Citizens Bank Park. Next up, it's the Seattle Mariners taking on the Baltimore Orioles. No official starter for Baltimore. We should see George Kirby going for the Mariners. George Kirby's been a solid option for Seattle this season. He's 6-6 with a 3.29 ERA. His last start, although it didn't start the best against the Yankees, Kirby still finished the game with a quality outing, 7 innings of 3-run baseball. The Mariners bats didn't back him up in that game, but we've seen Seattle turn it on offensively a little bit more as of late. I like their chances in this game. Baltimore, if this is a bullpen game, at the beginning of the season, the Orioles bullpen was a lot stronger than what it is now. When you look in the last 30 days, this Baltimore ERA in the bullpen is pretty steep, and the Sierra, the expected numbers, are also not great for Baltimore. So I don't really like their chances in this one. Give me the Seattle Mariners on the road on the money line. Next up, it's the Oakland Athletics taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Luis Medina and Yusei Kikuchi are your starters. It's tough to back the Oakland A's in this spot, as although Luis Medina is coming off a good outing, he has not been great overall this year, 7.01 ERA this season. It's also tough to trust this Oakland A's bullpen, as we know they've struggled all year, basically. On the road, Luis Medina in 21 2/3 innings has a 7.89 ERA. He's got 22 strikeouts, but 13 walks to go with it, so his control's been off. And when you look at the Oakland A's offensively in this matchup, Yusei Kikuchi, a left-handed pitcher, the Oakland A's offensively have really struggled against lefties in the last 30 days. When you look at the numbers, OPS-wise, this team is dead last in baseball. WRC+, they are 28th in the league. Isolated power-wise, they're ranked 30th in baseball, so dead last, of course. Strikeout rate, 25.5% is the 6th highest. So, Yusei Kikuchi, he's got a solid 3.97 ERA overall this year. I think he pitches well in this spot against a struggling Oakland A's lineup against those left-handers. So give me the Toronto Blue Jays on the run line at the Rogers Center. Next up, it's the Texas Rangers taking on the New York Yankees. We're going to see Nathan Eovaldi and Garrett Cole as the projected starters in this one. It's a tough game for me because, Garrett Cole's been the stopper for the Yankees this year. He's got an 8-1 record, a 2.64 ERA coming off a great start against the Mariners. 7 1/3 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, and a 3-1 Yankees win. He is a big reason why the Yankees have a winning record right now because this lineup has really struggled overall this year. Their on-base percentage and team OPS have not been great. Aaron Judge has been out of the lineup for quite some time now, and other guys have missed, periodically different portions of the season. Guys like Stanton, Donaldson, and Bader. So, to see the Yankees still have a winning record is surprising because you look at the last 8 games going into Saturday's contest against the Rangers. Here's how many runs the Yankees scored in these ball games: 2 runs, 2 runs, 4 runs, 3 runs, 1 run, 2. 5 and a 15-5 loss, and then 3 runs. So this team is just really not putting together great offensive performances, while on the other side, we have a Rangers team that we know can put up crooked numbers offensively really at any time. I know Cole's been sharp, and I know the Rangers bullpen is not great, but if all these been pitching well this season, I trust this Rangers lineup more right now. Give me the Rangers on the money line on the road. Next up, we go to Great American Ballpark as the Braves take on the Reds. Charlie Morton and Ben Lively are your starters. You know, Charlie Morton last year pitched at Great American Ballpark, and I know the Reds last year were nowhere near the Reds this year, but still, Charlie Morton at a hitter-friendly ballpark was excellent in that game. He went 7 innings, he had 10 strikeouts, and he didn't give up a single earned run in that start. And we know Charlie Morton last year actually didn't pitch too well on the road. This season in 2023, Morton's got much better numbers away from Truist Park, so I actually think Morton could put together a decent outing in this game. And we know the Braves lineup is usually going to back up their starting pitchers. We've seen that all season. One of the best lineups in baseball. You know, Ben Lively, not the best expected numbers, especially when you look at his FIP above 5 overall. A 4.11 ERA is not too shabby, but his last start, 4 innings, 2 home runs. He's given up at least two home runs or more in 3 of his last 4 starts against this Braves team, which is crushing right into pitchers. I can't get there with Lively and this Reds bullpen. So give me the Atlanta Braves on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Kansas City Royals. Tyler Glasnow and Daniel Lynch are your starters. You know, I like the matchup for Lynch against the Rays. The Rays have not been great against lefties in the last month. Lynch is coming off his best start by far this season. 7 innings, no earned runs in a 1-0 Royals win over the Tigers. But it's still tough to get there with Kansas City, with Lynch being inconsistent this year. I mean, before that start against the Tigers, he gave 7 earned and 4 homers against the Reds. And with this Royals bullpen also not being great this year. So, you know, it's tough to get there with Kansas City. But Glasnow's not in the best of form. I wouldn't want to lay 1.5 runs or, you know, anywhere near the money line with the Tampa Bay Rays at that price. So for me, I'm leaning towards the under. I think Lynch will pitch well. I think Glasnow can bounce back. You know, his start against the Orioles, one of the better lineups in baseball, he gave 6 earned runs. But now you're facing the Kansas City Royals, one of the worst lineups in baseball. You know, they strike out quite a bit. I do think Glasnow can put together a good bounce back outing. So for me, a lean in the Royals-Rays game. But for me, this is just a game there's not a lot of value with, so I'll be staying away from. Next up, it's the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Corbin Burnes and Aaron Savale are your starters. Another tough game for me in this one. I do like the Brewers in this one. Corbin Burnes obviously didn't have a great outing in his last game, but that was against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We know overall this year they've been one of the tougher lineups to face as a right-handed pitcher. And before that game, Burnes was in really good form. He had a lot of quality starts. He was missing bats. Now, I know the Guardians do a really good job at limiting strikeouts similar to the Arizona Diamondbacks, but they don't have the power that Arizona does in that lineup. So I do think Burnes can give the Brewers a quality start here. I also don't love Aaron Savale. You know, I do think a 2.67 ERA is going to go up as the season continues. I see some regression in his game. Just the fact that he's given up a good amount of home runs already to start the year. His control's been off as well. His last 2 starts, 7 walks allowed against the A's and Padres with 3 home runs to go with it. So I like the Milwaukee Brewers here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Detroit Tigers. Bailey Ober and Michael Lorenzen are your projected starters. You know, I like the fact that Bailey Ober throws a lot of strikes. He really doesn't walk a lot of batters. His control's been there. And, you know, he only has 4 walks in his last 5 starts. But sometimes I think he throws too many strikes. And we've seen him miss down the heart of the plate quite a bit, especially as of late, where he's given up 4 home runs in his last 2 starts, 5 homers in his last 3. You know, I know the Tigers aren't a great offensive team, but I still worry about that, especially when you have to lay a pretty hefty price on the road. Ober, you know, Michael Lorenzen on the other side, last start 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Neither of these teams have been great against righties in the last 30 days, and the Twins have the steepest strikeout rate against right-handed pitchers, and, you know, one of the higher strikeout rates of the team overall this season. In the last 30 days at 30.4% against righties. So I think Lorenzen pitches pretty well. I like the value we're getting with Detroit at home. So give me the Tigers on the money line at Comerica Park. Next up, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Miami Marlins. Johan Oviedo and Yuri Perez are your starters. Yuri Perez has been outstanding this season, a 4-1 record with a 1.54 ERA. Another quality start, another shutout in 6 innings of work, 9 strikeouts for Perez. In 4 of his last 5 starts, he's given up no earned runs in those games. Now, the offense doesn't always back him up. We've seen, you know, even the last game against the Blue Jays, the Marlins didn't score a run in that game. It was a 2-0 final score in favor of Toronto. But against Johan Oviedo, who's been inconsistent this year, has a losing record at 3-7 with a 4.3 ERA. His last start he gave up only 2 earned runs, but it was still not enough for a Pirates win because this offense has really struggled. It was a 4-0 final score. Oviedo's had some issues with his control this season. His strikeout numbers have kind of been inconsistent. I think the Marlins are the better side here, so give me the Miami Marlins on the money line at Lone Depot Park. Next up, it's the Boston Red Sox taking on the Chicago White Sox. Cutter Crawford going for Boston. No official starter for the White Sox on the other side. Cutter Crawford's had better numbers as a reliever this year than a starting pitcher, but his last game was a starting pitching role. It was 5 innings, 5 strikeouts, and no earned runs in that win against the Twins, 10-4 the final score. And, the White Sox have not been great against righties this year. In the last 30 days, they have the 5th highest strikeout rate. Their OPS is 27th in baseball against righties. Their isolated power numbers a little bit better, but still below league average. So I don't think the White Sox do much offensively here against Crawford. We'll have to see who the official starter is for Chicago on the mound. Could be a bullpen game. This White Sox bullpen's not been very good this season, so I like the Red Sox in this game on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Colorado Rockies. Tyler Anderson and Austin Gomber are your starters. There's no doubting that Tyler Anderson has really struggled this season, a 5.64 ERA, despite having that winning record of 4-1. The big thing is the Angels' bats have really backed him up in his starts. I mean, you look at his last 5 games, he's had games where he's given up 5 earned runs, 4 earned runs, 6 earned runs, and the Angels are still 4-1 on the money line in those starts. And I think this is another spot where the Angels' offense shows up and backs up Tyler Anderson. Austin Gomber, a 7.25 ERA overall this season, has really struggled, especially at Coors Field, which is no surprise. Overall, a 9.4 ERA at Coors this year. So, the Angels have pretty good numbers against lefties this season. I think they get to Gomber, and the Rockies have also really struggled against lefties this year. Their numbers have been some of the worst in baseball in the last 30 days. So, Anderson is actually a pretty good matchup for him to bounce back. He has a lot of experience at Coors Field. He was a Rocky for a few years, and his ERA overall at Coors in his career has actually not been too shabby. For a Coors Field starter, it's right around 4 for an ERA, so it's not too bad. I think Anderson's good enough here for the Angels to win this game. I'm going to take him on the money line and lay a little bit on the run line as well. Next up, it's the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the San Francisco Giants. Ryan Nelson and Anthony DeSclafani are your starters. Ryan Nelson, I don't mind backing him when he's pitching away from Chase Field. At home this season, in 39 1/3 innings, he's got a 7.09 ERA, but on the road in 37 innings of work, a solid 3.41 ERA. His opponent's batting average is about 100 points lower on the road than it is at home. So I do think, he's backable in this spot. His last game on the road against the Brewers, 5 innings, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts, no walks. You'll take that all day long for Ryan Nelson. It wasn't enough for a Diamondbacks win, but I do think Arizona will be able to score against Anthony DeSclafani early in this game. DeSclafani has not pitched very well at Oracle Park this season, and I do think he struggles again in this spot. Overall, ERA at 4.8 at home this year. Giving the Arizona Diamondbacks a really good price on the road. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the San Diego Padres. Mackenzie Gore and Seth Lugo are your starters. This is a spot where Seth Lugo, his first start back from injury, was a really good one. 5 innings, 1 run against a good San Francisco Giants lineup. You got Mackenzie Gore. There's 3 problems I have with Mackenzie Gore in this game. First of all, he's a lefty. The Padres have just dominated left-handed pitching as of late. We saw what they did against Patrick Corbin in the first game of this series. We saw what they did against Alex Wood in the final game of that Giants series. I think Mackenzie Gore is in trouble. Second of all, Mackenzie Gore is not in best form. His last outing, 6 innings, 5 earned runs, 2 home runs, and 9 base hits against the Cardinals in a 9-3 Nationals loss. The third problem is he's a lefty that's not in good form and has struggled against these Padres earlier this season, where Gore went 4 2/3 innings, giving up 2 home runs, 3 earned runs, 4 walks, 7 base hits. It was a 7-4 Padres win. I like the Padres big in this one on the run line. I'd lay 2.5 runs as well. Next up, the final game for Sunday's card in Major League Baseball. It's the Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Hunter Brown and Tony Gonsolin are your starters. To me, I think the value lies with the road team in this game. I think you're getting the better starting pitcher, the better bullpen, and arguably the better lineup as of late against right-handed pitchers. Hunter Brown and both of these starters really struggled in their last outings. Brown gave up 6 earned runs. Gonsolin gave up 7. But when you look at the numbers, Hunter Brown overall this year, 3.78 ERA and an even better 3.16 xFIP. So solid ERA, good expected numbers. Gonsolin's got a good ERA at 2.92, but an expected ERA at 4.36, an xFIP at 4.97. There's a lot of regression concerns in his game going forward. A very low BABIP at 194. I think the Astros are the valuable side in this one for me, so give me the Houston Astros on the money line on the road. And that's it. Those are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.